My name is Samia Moslimany. I'm a Saudi citizen. I came to this country when I was 20 years old, and I'm 50 years old now. I've been here for 30 years. I'm the mother of Saudis. I've contributed to the Saudi economy and to the Saudi society in general, and I feel an integral part of this country. I'm going to talk a little bit about what brought me to this campaign, the Women to Drive campaign, and I want to encourage other women like me that are part of the community and part of the society, and residents in general that Saudi Arabia has been their home, to support this very, very important movement. The Quranic ayah in Surah An-Nisa 135, I'm going to play it for you here.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما فلا تتبعوا الهوى أن تعدلوا وإن تلوا أو تعرضوا فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا.
I don't think that it's coincidental that a divine order to stand for justice is embedded in the chapter that revolutionized and divinely empowered women 1400 years ago. The message of freedom and equality was revolutionary. It should have been a springboard for universal human rights, not an agent to limit us to the 7th century, which it has become here. My inspiration comes from the drivers of 1990, including Mediha Lajarouche, Aisha Almana, and Hassa al-Sheikh, who joined with a group of 47 other women and drove. Their characters were torn apart, and from the minbars of the mosques and in the Saudi media. The women were banned from travel, lost their jobs, and were under surveillance for years afterwards. At the time of their drive, there were no cell phones, no internet, no Twitter, no connection to the outside world. And they risked all and sacrificed much. For you and for me. In 2011, I was inspired by Manal Sharif, who drove alone, and by Saudi blogger and social activist Iman al-Nafjan. I wholeheartedly supported the movement, and I convinced myself, though, that the time was not right for me to actively participate. I was in the midst of court hearings, and the judge seemed inclined in my favor. But would that change if the judge learned that I had driven and violated the ban? But then I remembered the Quranic verse that brought me to this positive place, and I knew I had to support these women that were standing for justice. And to support them was not just to support them, it was to participate. When October 26 dawned, the first day of driving, I eagerly followed social media. So different than 1990. The entire country was connected and participated. There were no reports of arrests. In fact, there was nothing but euphoric posts of women quietly standing for justice. There is safety in numbers, and I decided I had to drive. I drove and was arrested and detained along with another brave Saudi woman, Nahed Batarfi. At the police station, we were told that to be released, we must sign a pledge not to drive, and that Nahed's 19-year-old son and my husband, from whom I have been estranged for 3 years, must attend as our legal guardians. I refused. After I signed the pledge by myself, my estranged husband arrived. They had managed to find him. I told him I refused that he should sign anything on my behalf. And despite our differences, he stood by me, and he told them, I can't control her. I don't have anything to do with what she decides to do. The officer allowed me to leave before my husband, I was released. I was not released into his custody. But he told me, okay, you may go. Take your car and go. And then he laughed and he wagged his finger at me and he said, "But let your driver drive. I don't mean you take your car and go." On October 26th, out of the entire country, with more than 100 women who drove, and only 16 were arrested, and only Nahid Batarfi and I were taken into custody, no women were harmed or imprisoned, and everyone reported being treated with the utmost courtesy from the officers involved. We know that the defiance of those who drove and the minimal lack of consequences women suffered continues to encourage other women to drive, and many people, men and women, to continue to support the campaign. Since the beginning of the Women to Drive campaign, hundreds of women have taken the wheel, and many of them have uploaded their videos. First wives still have few or no rights. Women are still considered minors at the mercy of their male guardians. Women are still banned from driving. But the next Women to Drive campaign date is February 22nd. The numbers are growing because of those Saudi women who faced their fears, bucked custom and tradition, with disregard for what people think. They stood for justice and took small, incremental, collective steps that are causing a groundswell of participation that will create the critical mass needed for real change. That is why we are on this earth, not to achieve justice, but to stand for justice. It's the journey, the small, incremental, collective steps of individuals. And there is safety in numbers. So get out there, February 22nd, if you've got a driver's license, and drive.